Okay, so as promised, I'm going to give you an overview of the academic evaluation. We're using our lovely testing subject, Daffy Duck. um, so essentially, every blue heading is a new section. So this section right here is essentially your stats. It tells us and your GPA, address, Panther ID, name, degree, whether or not you've applied to graduate, all that jazz. And then going into the next step, this is essentially your academic advisor's favorite box. So in this section is all of the requirements for graduation. So going down the line, you've got residency. Essentially, in order to graduate Georgia State, you need 39 credit hours of 3,000 or 4,000 level credit or upper level credit to do so. And that's this box right here. And then in order to graduate, you also need a 2.0, which should be a given. And then you've got your core, your Area F, which is essentially your pre-major courses, and then Area G, which is your major, and then Area H is an extension of the major in your case, but a lot of cases it's almost like a minor, which it could be for you too. It's a complicated section. And then you have another box down here, which is residency requirements. And this box is the last box on your academic evaluation, which essentially goes through literally every class that's counting towards residency and lets you know which ones are and which ones aren't. And then this section, non-course requirements, everybody should have every box in that section checked. If you don't, that is a problem. And if you see a box unchecked where it says still needed, like it does here, talk to your academic advisor, because they can either let you know what you need to do to fix that or fix it for you. Some people may transfer in U.S. history and or American government from either private institutions in the state of Georgia or institutions outside of the state of Georgia. And if that's the case, there is a test required prior to graduation. You can talk to your academic advisor about that as well. Sorry, my dog is in the background. So moving on into core, Area E, or A through E is your core. Area A is your math and English. Everybody needs a minimum of pre-calculus for this degree. So that's math 11, 13. However, in this section, you could count college algebra and pre-calculus could count somewhere else towards the degree, but you do need to take a minimum of pre-calculus somewhere eventually, because it is a prereq for Principles of Chemistry 1. So in addition to that, you need English Composition 1 and 2. Area B is an institutional options section. These courses, this area is kind of particular to Georgia State. You have your options. Between 4 courses, you need 2. Critical thinking, human communication, or perspectives course. Perspectives-wise, you have the option between 2001 or 2002. 2001, those tend to be more cultural and humanities based, and then 2002 is more STEM and business based. 2003 is human expression, and that's only offered at PC campuses. Area C is humanities and fine arts. If I were you, I would just stick to 1 humanities and 1 fine arts, because you'll see that down here it says that you could take a foreign language, but for any foreign language, you need a minimum of 1,002 or higher, which is a Part 2 or higher, meaning that if you don't test into Part 2, you have to take Part 1, but Part 1 isn't really going to count anywhere. So to make matters way less complicated than they need to be, go ahead and stick with humanities and fine arts. Unless you already have credit for some foreign language, that's fine. But for those of you who don't, humanities and fine arts. You need 1 class from each of those sections. So your options are going to be literatures, humanities, intro to philosophy, intro to world religion, media, culture, and society, and then fine arts wise, you've got all the art histories, art appreciation, history of film, history of the motion picture, music appreciation, and theater appreciation. So those are your options there. Area D is going to be your science section for your core. You'll notice that principles of both chem and bio are not in this section because they are actually required somewhere else. We'll get to that eventually. That being said, you are required to take a third science sequence. If I were you, I would stay away from the intros to bio and chems, because they are a lower level than what you're taking principles wise. There's no need for you to do that. Pick a different science. Your options are going to include astronomy, not astrology. We're studying the stars, not star signs here. Geography, geology, and introductory physics. I say introductory physics and not principles of physics because principles of physics requires calculus 1 or higher. You aren't required to take calculus, therefore it wouldn't make sense to do principles of physics. But if you have credit for calculus and you want to do physics, that's fine. A lot of medical schools require physics. That would be a good option to put here, part 1 and part 2. And I don't think many are particular on which one you do, as long as you have some sort of physics. Introductory physics is algebra-based. Principles is calculus-based. And you may notice this second section down here, which is a mathematics section. So in part 1, you're required to do a sequence, meaning a part 1 and part 2 of whatever science sequence you choose. Astronomy, geology, geography has to be part 1 and part 2 of the same sequence, not part 1 of astronomy and part 2 of geography. You can't mix and match here. So this second section is either an additional science with no lab or an additional math course. So let's say you took college algebra in this math section up here. Pre-calculus would go in this section down here. If you took pre-calculus up there, you could do calculus in this section, or you could do an additional astronomy class. I mean, it's up to you what you do there. The higher you go with math, the more options you have, really. Area E is a social science section. This is going to be American government and U.S. history. Those are required by the state of Georgia of every student that goes through the university system of Georgia, so those are not negotiable. And then you've got a global section and a social science section. And then your options are gonna range anywhere from a global econ, world history 1 and 2, and then global politics, I think. Yeah, global issues, essentially global politics. And then social science-wise, you've got African American studies, anthropology, criminal justice, micro and macro econ, geography, so human geography here, not a lab science geography, gerontology, African American history. Actually, the AAS and history 1141 and 1142 are the same course. They're just what's called cross-listed. They're taught by different departments depending on what semester it is and who's teaching it. Psychology, sociology, and women's gender and sexuality studies. So those are your options there. Area F, we've kind of already touched on. Every single one of you should have at least 3 classes done or in progress in this section, because you need principles of chem 1 and principles of bio 1 to be in this 2100 class you're in right now. So both sequence of principles of chem and bio are in this section along with 2100, and that's 18 credit hours. Area G is going to be your major. We kind of touched on this in the video, so I'm not going to go super in depth, but it's essentially split up between science, business, ethics, law, and then your signature experience, which is that like end of degree, choose your own adventure situation. Area H, like I said, is a hodgepodge of elective space. It's 29 credit hours right now. If any of you are pre-med, all of the pre-med courses are in this section. So you've got Organic Chem 1 and 2 and both their labs. There's another one. Biochem is another one. I think that's it. Pre-chem or pre-med wise. And then a lot of labs for things. But there's stuff other than pre-med courses that are included in this list. So I encourage you to take a look at them. All of these are hyperlinks, and they'll open up the link to the catalog where you can read descriptions, see what interests you, and cater those classes to your own interests. You'll notice this section down here where it says you need Additionally, you need a minimum of 8 credits from the 3,000 or 4,000 level. I touched on this before about residency. You need a minimum of 39 credit hours in order to graduate. Your Area G or your major is 31 automatically. So regardless, you're going to get 31 credit hours of residency because not many of these courses are transferable. So you're going to end up taking most of them here. And then Area H, in order to meet that 39, you're going to be missing 8 credit hours. So 8 credit hours of this 29 credit hours down here have to be from the upper level as well in order for you to meet residency to graduate. And that's essentially the gist of the degree. It's very choose your own adventure, essentially. You have a lot of freedom to take whatever courses you're wanting to in this section down here. Some of you may realize you already have credits going there or the section is already filled. That's fine too. You just may not have enough credits to be full-time down the line. And talk about that with your advisor. If I'm your advisor, talk with me. I don't think many of you are seniors yet, but you'll get there eventually. And then, like I said, down here, there's an additional residency block, and that's where all of those upper level courses are going to pull into. So some courses may appear on your academic evaluation twice. Once up in this section in Area G, and then down here in this residency requirement box. They're only counting once, but they're in 2 different sections to make it very, very clear to whoever is making sure you're meeting graduation requirements that you're actually meeting residency. Because it was not easy to count up residency before this block was put in here. This is actually fairly new. It's probably less than a year old, but it's going to pull in all those credit hours, but only count them once towards your degree. So you're not going to see double credit anywhere. You'll just see them counting in 2 different places, and really it's for 2 different requirements. So that's it. If you're registered for courses, they're going to show up down here. Your schedule is going to be under this withdrawal section. If you've withdrawn from anything or failed anything, it's going to be in courses not used for this program. And I mean, depending on your situation, things get a little dicey from withdrawals down. It depends on what you've done in the past. Any transfer credit that's not counting anywhere is going to go under courses not used for this program. So if you see any classes under courses not used for this program, they're not counting anywhere towards your degree. And if you think that's an issue, talk to your academic advisor. Main moral of this story is talk to your academic advisor. They know more than you think, and they're here to serve you, so utilize them. They're a resource available to you through student fees, essentially. And it makes a lot of sense to take advantage of that. I will include my information in an email to Dr. Saylor to pass out to you all, along with some documents that will give you a little more insight into prereqs and curriculum flowchartness. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me. But yeah, thanks. Good luck.